What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. It is slowly and surely getting to that time of the year where, yes, we are getting to OTAs. Yes, we are going to start getting into training camp and some of this other offseason stuff that really indicates the start of the NFL season. And at the start of the NFL season, that means that redraft teams are going to be kind of coming back in. People who are playing redraft, they're going to be coming back into this landscape, and they're going to be wanting to know who to pick in their redraft leagues later this fall. So what we are going to be doing today is a very early 2024 redraft mock draft. We're going to do it over on Underdog Fantasy, but that is basically redraft anyways. We'll talk about it from that lens. And we also have a special guest today, somebody who I've done a lot of redraft content with. So if you watched our redraft content last year, you guys know the face, you know the name. It is going to be Caleb. Let's get Caleb in the building, man. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing so good. It's so great to be back on the League FFB channel. Talking some redraft, we both have made Dynasty content, but let's be clear, the people love when we do our start sit streams during the regular season. So we thought we'd bring it just a little bit early. It's the end of May. It's in that awkward period between Dynasty and redraft. So let's give them a best ball draft. The people know what they want.
Yeah, why not, man? And that's the thing, right? Because the best ball, the redraft, it's the same thing. There's a little bit of different strategy, I think, when you're playing in a best ball league. But like I said, we will talk about these players today from a redraft lens, and we'll talk about it as we think they are going to perform next year during the 2024 season. So let's share the screen because I do have Underdog pulled up right now. Now I will enter this draft, which is doing your typical 12-man league. It's a half-point PPR, one quarterback. So those are kind of the normal settings that we will be going into this one with. But let's pull this over. I didn't even share the screen. Hold on.
Looks great though. Looks great. We
Hey, it
got to
looks
say,
great, right?
we will say
Dang.
this. You look at that. Look how perfect. It looks great for you viewers. Absolutely incredible the work that Andrew does over here on his channel. So y'all are in for a treat every time you tune into one of these videos. It's immaculate.
Bang. There we go, man. I appreciate it. So we'll just wait for this to get filled out. But I wanted to ask you, Caleb, because there's a couple different strategies we could take. Do you have a strategy that you really want to use? I know we're very early into the draft process for this year, and we probably don't know which strategies are the best or the worst yet. That's why we do things like this. But is there something that you want to try today?
Yeah, I think there's been a pretty big adjustment to the overall quarterback correlation and the new quarterback landscape that's been happening. For me, the top guys are kind of getting to a price point that I don't really like here on Underdog. So that's something to be considered, maybe a little late round QB action if we were to go that way. I really do think zero RB is still king. I know there's been some talk of like hero running back. Um, I still like the zero running back strategy. So we'll just have to kind of see how things land because I do think there are some elite level running backs in the first round that if depending on what spot you get, in this randomizer, like you might just have to take it and kind of bite the bullet and go from there. But those are some of my thoughts. That I will say this: the second round to me is literally the weakest thing on the face of the earth. Like if you were to show me the second and third round, I'm usually just like, like I don't know. That's kind of how I feel right now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that will change as we kind of go through summer and especially as we get into the preseason. But right now, second round's kind of where I'm feeling. So.
Fair enough. And I just wanted to pull up these quarterbacks because you talked about the ADPs. We got Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud. All five of those guys going in the top 50 players. So you see the ADP of 50. They're all within those top 50 players. That means that they're going within the first 5 rounds. It's pretty early for these one quarterback drafts, but I think there's still difference makers down the board. Guys like Kyler Murray, who are going to be 3 rounds later than a guy like CJ Stroud and actually have a chance to outscore CJ Stroud this season. Guys like even Jaden Daniels, Tua, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, like guys who maybe are being faded a little bit more, but they still can give us those fantasy football points.
And on this note, like CJ Stroud, I think out of that group that we just kind of mentioned in the top 5, to me, like there's not really a whole lot of rushing upside. I understand you add Stephon Diggs into this offense. You got hopefully a healthy Tank Dell. And so a lot of that makes you excited. But I mean, when you're talking about those first 3 guys, Konami code quarterbacks, you got Anthony Richardson a spot behind CJ Stroud. I think Anthony Richardson is just going to continue to rise up. I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Richardson actually overtakes CJ Stroud as we approach the season.
He definitely could. And you see, we got the 12th pick, so we will be picking at the turn, which actually, for what you mentioned about that second round, this actually is probably best case scenario because we are going to get one of the top players, which means we might get actually a first round talent. And then we'll just wait in the third round to see who else we get. But knowing that we're drafting from the turn, does that kind of change strategy for you at all? Like we have guys like A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Marvin Harrison, Drake London, Saquon. We could get one of those elite running backs. We could get double wide receiver. Do you think that's something that we should be looking at as the double wide receiver? Or do you think we go hero, or what are you thinking about that?
It depends. I actually just recorded my first redraft video tonight, right before this. And so for me, the guy in the first round, running back wise, that if he falls to us, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think that's going to be the value that I'd want at the 112. And then we could hit on one of those running back or wide receivers. But if we do not have Jahmyr Gibbs, if he's off the board before that, if the top 4 running backs are off, then I'm cool to double hit on wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm down with that. And I want to kind of go back and forth. So you'll be in charge of these odd rounds. So you can start with the first round pick. You'll have the third round, fifth round, all of that. You get final decision. Okay. I will get the final decision in the even rounds, but we'll work together. We'll try and figure something out and try and get a good team. But we'll give you the odd rounds.
I appreciate that as the guest on the channel. Yeah, I will step in front of you. I will eat first at the buffet, but I will say I will not just be drafting. I want your thoughts too, because I'm not just going to go over here to the right. Shout out to the roll. Shout out for you for tuning in.
For sure. He says, I'll give you guys a shout out on my YouTube and Sleepy Leagues. Hopefully y'all hit 1.8K, but I don't know how much recognition y'all going to get from it. Appreciate you always showing love anyways. He's saying that because I said we are 4 subscribers away from 1,800, hoping we can pass that milestone tonight. So if you guys are in the stream, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you haven't already, it will help us out. I think actually by the time that we actually went live, we were 1 subscriber away. So if one of you guys wants to do that, we will hit the milestone of 1,800. So,
and if you're tuning in on Twitter, make sure you come on over to the YouTube. That also helps us out a ton as well. But we appreciate you tuning in, watching this draft.
For sure. And if you come over on from Twitter to the YouTube, you can actually participate in the comment section with us, and we can interact with you tonight. So let's look at this first half of this draft so far, because we've had CeeDee Lamb come off as the 101. Do you think that's something that's going to be common this year? Is there a real conversation about CeeDee Lamb being the number 1 player in fantasy football?
I think you have to after the year he had. I mean, considering last year was better than anything we've really like Justin Jefferson type season for CeeDee Lamb, even potentially even better. I don't know if he can do that again, but we have seen the ultimate level ceiling. So if you're comparing the ceiling of CeeDee Lamb versus even a guy like Tyreek Hill, who we think has similar ceiling, like I do think you have to take CeeDee Lamb, especially in a PPR type format like this. And Tyreek Hill, I think, is interesting as he is getting up there in age. He is 30 years old, but I do think there is a clear 1-2 this season, especially in Bestball. Now, the question I had for you, are you taking Amon-Ra St. Brown over Ja'Marr Chase? I really think that's really where the discussion has to happen for me.
I'd have the conversation. I think the reality is I would probably lean to Ja'Marr Chase still, but I think that's mainly because I trust Burrow more than I trust Jared Goff. But also, it's hard to ignore the fact that Amon-Ra St. Brown has been dominant for fantasy football. So we are here on the clock right now.
Give me Garrett Wilson.
You want Garrett Wilson?
Yep.
I'm down for it. We did have Jahmyr Gibbs come off the board, so we didn't get him, but we will get Garrett Wilson. Talk to me about Garrett Wilson. Why do you like Garrett Wilson here?
Yeah, if anyone looks at my pinned tweet, I saw a pinned tweet that I put out from a thread that I put out last summer talking about Garrett Wilson, how if he would have had a decent quarterback in his rookie season, we would have been talking about him in the same breath as Justin Jefferson. I think the same thing was going into year 2, and then we literally saw Aaron Rodgers try out there with the flag and then end up not being able to play a full series, and then not even getting to play a full year, and you're getting the Zach Wilson treatment in year 2. So for me, year 3, I think this is where the true breakout's going to happen for Garrett Wilson. All the metrics scream that he's an elite level wide receiver. So that is my thoughts on Garrett Wilson.
Well, I was debating between 3 guys. I was debating between Drake London, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jonathan Taylor, but we got autoed. So it is what it is. We got Marvin Harrison Jr. though, which I don't think is a bad selection. Now, do you feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. is being drafted too high for redraft purposes at this point? He is what was that? That was wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wide receiver 9?
I think so. I think it's hard because, of course, we have both come out of making a ton of dynasty content, and so talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver, and then talking about him in redraft. I think you always do want to pump the brakes a little bit on these rookie wide receivers, especially in their first year for fantasy football purposes. But when we're looking at Marvin Harrison Jr.'s situation, you, of course, have him, Michael Wilson Jr., Zay Jones to man the wide receiver front, and then Trey McBride. So really his really only competition is Trey McBride. So, and you got Kyler Murray throwing him the ball. So
Yeah.
I honestly think the price is valid. I think with our team right now, we got 2 wide receivers who we're super excited about that we think have the world of potential. But I think their floors could be lower than others in the first few picks. So I think right here we are boom or bust. That's where we're at, Andrew. We are swinging for the fences, Barry Bonds style, or we're going home. There's no in between here for us.
We definitely are. And it feels like to me as well, like a guy like Drake London has seen a significant rise in his ADP from where people were drafting him last year to where he is going this year in our redraft leagues. It is going to be night and day. He's probably going to have to be drafted as your wide receiver 1. I mean, we just saw him come off the board as wide receiver 10 in this draft. And last year you were getting him as what? Your wide receiver 3, 4, 5? Like that's kind of the range that you were being able to get him at. And now, because of the Kirk Cousins edition, we are already putting him up there. This feels like a pick where even though I like Drake London, even though I think that this is the ceiling for Drake London, like a wide receiver 1 is the ceiling, it doesn't feel like there's much more room on top of his current ADP to grow. Like it feels like we're almost drafting him at that expected ceiling.
And I think if anyone in this Atlanta Falcons offense is to really break out this year, I think it's gonna be Kyle Pitts. And I much prefer the price on a Kyle Pitts over reaching for Drake London, who we've seen have the glimpses of. He just hasn't had a quarterback. Same thing with Garrett Wilson. I just think the Garrett Wilson we've actually seen produce on a points per game basis, and Drake London we really haven't up to this point. So
yeah, I agree.
But I think the nice thing with our team is we're going to have a lot of potential. Like if we are to take and deploy a late round quarterback, like getting like Kyler and an Aaron Rodgers later in the draft could be something we consider.
Yeah, because I do like to find that stack. I do like to kind of get that correlation there at that quarterback, that wide receiver position. But let's look at this ADP right now. And actually, the roll says Chris Olave over Drake London. Do you all agree? I do not. I do not agree with that.
I haven't done my wide receiver rankings officially for redraft yet, but I don't think I can get behind. I just think that Atlanta Falcons offense is going to be so much more efficient. So with Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix, depending on what ends up happening with Kirk Cousins and his health. So I'm more pro Drake London, but I do think they're kind of in a similar tier for me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Chris Olave to me, especially in redraft, I just worry about the ceiling. Like it feels like he's going to have a safer floor as a wide receiver for us, but he's just never like what is the ceiling of a guy like Chris Olave? Like I don't feel like he's a wide receiver 1. Do you feel like he's a wide receiver 1 for us?
I think he could potentially get there. I just think the issue is he needs a better quarterback, and he's not going to get a better quarterback this year. And so with him not getting a better quarterback, then we're stuck at talking about Chris Olave as a high-end wide receiver 2. So if you're cool with a high-end wide receiver 2, like a guy that could finish in the wide receiver 12, wide receiver 14 range, then cool. But yeah, I think Drake London does have wide receiver 1 overall potential. So I would be taking that shot. So
yeah, I just think there's more upside. And honestly, I feel like they have similar floors. So when you have 2 players who have similar floors, but one has a higher ceiling, you take the guy that has the higher ceiling.
I agree.
So we're about to be back up here in a little bit. What is your eyes kind of gravitating towards here? I know we're not really looking at the or the quarterback, probably not looking at the tight end. So what are we seeing here that we like?
Yeah, well, I was originally kind of taking a thought about I didn't want a quarterback, but if Josh Allen would have fallen to us there, I would have considered it. I guess he still is on the board. I don't know why
He
he went.
still is falling, yeah.
So if he's potentially there, I think I switch my strategy because I do think Josh Allen is in for a pretty big year. But we'll have to see what happens over the next few picks. If that doesn't happen, then I'm pretty cool going with a wide receiver.
Okay, what wide receivers are you thinking about?
Well, I feel like I keep thinking of people and they keep flying off the board. So I'm hesitant to say. Like, I'm honestly not a big DK Metcalf guy, so I'm kind of hoping that someone takes him ahead of
There
us.
you are.
There we go.
There you
There
are.
we go. Pray, good gracious, get him off the board. So honestly, I think for me here, oh, absolute snipe. But I'm cool. I'm
Okay.
cool. I'm actually cool. Do we go Jalen Hurts here, or do we? You could. I don't love any of the wide receivers.
You don't if you don't love the wide receivers, I'm down to go Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I'm cool to go Jalen Hurts. That's what I want.
But we still got to go back to back here, so we probably still have to go back to the wide receiver anyways, even though we don't love them. But I have I have my eyes on two people, and you kind of tell me your thoughts here. Zay Flowers versus George Pickens. Who do we think has a higher ceiling this year?
Zay Flowers.
Okay, let's go Zay Flowers then.
Which makes me upset that we should have just gone Lamar and said screw
Later.
ADP. Well, I don't know if Lamar probably wouldn't have made it back to us.
Yeah, he probably doesn't. But that's fine. I mean, you don't necessarily have to chase the stack that much. We still have so many stack opportunities here as well. Roll says T. Higgins. How do you feel about T. Higgins this year? I'm not necessarily as high on T. Higgins.
The role was in my comment section in my Dynasty wide receiver rankings. Asked me why I had T. Higgins so low. And for me, it just comes down to we have not seen a clean bill of health for this man in 3 straight years. And now going into year 4 for T. Higgins, I don't know if I can get on board with a high level upside. I mean, here I know he would have been our wide receiver 3, which granted, I know their week 18 games pretty good, so I could see that, especially a contest like this, getting into the week 17, week 18. But I'd rather go Zay Flowers, who we know is the clear wide receiver 1 on the Baltimore Ravens. I know he's competing with targets with Mark Andrews, but I don't know. I can't get on board with the boomer bust of T. Higgins. So
yeah, I mean, I was looking at Matt Harmon's reception perception the other day because he dropped a couple of these players from the 2023 draft class that how they graded out during their rookie year. And Zay Flowers, man, is impressive. Like the success rate that he had against man, against zone, against press, like everything for his size and for what we expected out of him, like he checked all the boxes. And it just feels like he's maybe still going to be able to reach that. I don't know if he's going to be able to give you wide receiver 1 numbers, but I think he has as high of a ceiling as a guy like, I don't know, a guy like, I'm looking at this board above us, maybe a guy like DJ Moore. Like they could have similar numbers this year, and DJ Moore went 2 rounds higher.
No, I'm with you. I mean, when we're talking to guys like Cooper Kupp, old, beat up, can he put up old, type Cooper Kupp numbers? We'll have to see. Devontae Smith, clear wide receiver 2, DK Metcalf, not a great offense. Like, I even think Lamar Jackson as a quarterback last year, with him finishing as QB 300 points per game basis with 21, like we've seen that ceiling for Lamar be closer to like 28, and his touchdowns, honestly, in that amazing season that he had in 2019, he threw for 36 touchdowns. Last year only threw for 24. So the fact, I think this offense can even take further steps and progress forward. And if they can even get more receiving touchdowns, like that's only going to benefit Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers. So yeah, no, I'm right there with you, because they didn't sign anybody. Like it's literally just them two, and however you view Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, Isaiah Likely, and if anybody's a big believer in Devontae Walker, who they drafted in the 5th round, and I'm not, so I don't think that there's really any added competition. Like you said, we also need to kind of account for, even though he wasn't fantastic last year, Odell Beckham isn't there either. So like an open wide receiver room for the most part behind Zay Flowers. We assume it's probably going to be Rashad Bateman as the wide receiver 2, but there's really nobody else there besides Mark Andrews and Zay.
Who was that wide receiver that everyone started with a T? This has been a few years ago, that everyone was like convinced was going to be like a thing on the Baltimore Ravens. He got like is it Tavon? No, I can't put my name on it. I just tried to.
Devin Duvernay?
No, not Devin Duvernay. Is it
Tylan Wallace?
Wallace.
Tylan Wallace.
That was it.
Yes.
That was it. Everyone tried to talk themselves into it. Same thing with Walker for me. I
Guilty
can't
as
tell.
charged.
It's
Guilty as charged. I like Tylan Wallace a lot when he was coming out of Oklahoma State.
Goodness.
But let's see, man. We got a couple picks. We got a quarterback, so we're fading that the rest of the way for the most part, right?
Yeah, we took an early one. I'm cool to wait.
So let's see what else we got here. A couple guys on the board. You thinking tight end, or you want to go wide receiver or running back?
You could convince me. I mean, honestly, Kincaid, I'm cool with. I'm also cool with Kyle Pitts. We know my love for Kyle Pitts. We're probably.
Kittles and Ingrams.
Yeah, where are we at running back wise? Is there anybody?
Running back wise, let's see. We got James Cook, Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara. These are kind of the guys.
Yeah.
It feels like. I feel like James Cook is like kind of standing there by himself. Do you feel the same way?
So I feel the same way. I just made a video in the video today. I think we're both big Rachaad White guys, which he's going typically on Underdog. He's going like 2 spots behind James Cook.
Yeah.
But in this offense, like who we're assuming Keon Coleman, Shakir, Kincaid can hold it down receiving wise. Like, I mean, if James Cook falls here, like I could see that being like our hero RB type and just bank on James Cook potentially.
I don't mind it
being a guy, but I'm also cool to just punt. Like if we want to punt it a few more rounds and take it.
Let's see who we got here at wide receiver. You got guys like Keenan, Jaden Reed, Worthy, Ridley, Rome.
For me, we're kind of getting into this tier of like a bunch of dudes. They're a bunch of dudes. So like if we get to this pick and we have the choice to potentially go like Cook and plus one of these tight ends, which did it, yeah. So what we had Kincaid
came off, so we still have Pitts. But I don't mind if we want to try and go James Cook, Kyle Pitts here. This feels
that's what my thought was. But I swear, who's this guy's name in front of us?
Young Yen.
Young Yen. He's listening to us right now.
Damn. Took our guy.
Okay.
Well, let's take Pitts. We'll set him up in the queue, and then it buys us about 20 more seconds to talk about this.
Okay.
We'll go back to that wide receiver. We don't feel like this is a reach on. Actually, we don't even need to look at that. So Jaden Reed, Worthy, Ridley, they're all kind of the same. Do we feel strongly about Kenneth Walker? Do we think he's like the next guy?
I personally don't, but I also think if we wait until this, we're talking about DeAndre Swift as our anchor running back. And I don't feel. I think we have to. I think we're forced to. But
is there an argument for Kamara?
No,
not anymore.
No.
Okay, let's go Kenneth Walker then. We'll take him, and that's setting us up. Let's look at this team right now because we have Jalen Hurts, Kenneth Walker, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Zay Flowers, and then Kyle Pitts. So we're a little bit young. We probably have guys that don't necessarily have super safe floors at the wide receiver position right now. So we probably need to find a couple guys to balance that out later in this draft. I would also say we have some stack opportunities for maybe a late round Aaron Rodgers, maybe a late round Kirk Cousins, maybe even if you want to. Do you believe in stacking like a quarterback with a running back? You think that can work? I mean, I guess if it's a pass catcher, Kenneth Walker's not really a pass catcher.
Yeah, I think it just depends on who's going to be at the board. But I agree with I think our team, as much as I look at this and I think who the heck's going to produce for this team on a week by week basis, I think we have enough upside that like if Kyle Pitts turns into who we think he's going to be, if Zay Flowers can take that next step, if Kenneth Walker can just, be more consistent than Zach Charbonnet, which I think the benefit for Kenneth Walker is that this new coaching staff wasn't there when they drafted Zach Charbonnet. So both of them will be given.
There's no pressure to put Charbonnet on the field.
There's no pressure to put him on the field. And I honestly, as much as I love Charbonnet and like he got that, I think he should have been drafted in the second round. I just don't think he should have gone to Seattle. I do think Kenneth Walker probably still holds him off for whatever this next year is. But the question always is with Kenneth Walker, can that durability, stay there? So that's the only question mark with him. But I think the talent is there. We just got to hope that the Seattle offense takes that next step so he can get enough touchdown opportunities to kind of supplant and potentially be a good value here.
Yes, I agree. And then also the fact that this coaching staff is coming from Baltimore, who has a history of rushing the football. So we'll see I can't remember where the offensive coordinator is coming from. Who's the offensive coordinator there? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I said the wrong name the other day on a video, and now I'm someone said it, and I'm looking this up because I was wrong. Oh, Ryan Grubb.
Ryan Grubb.
From Washington. He was literally from, right? I think.
Yep. So, yeah, man. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I remember that actually because there was rumors about Penix potentially going to Seattle. But you see the roll in here?
Yeah, the Rolls comments making me laugh. He's carrying the chat.
Okay. Yeah, y'all
He
need to
said,
get here
man.
for sure. But yeah, man. I mean, I think at this point right now, like, so the way that I'm looking at this team, I feel like I know you like to punt that running back position. Are you opposed to taking a guy like? I guess there's just not a lot of people in here that are exciting. It just feels like if you don't take one early, you're getting the same guy no matter what. Like, what's the difference here between a Swift and a Najee or a Stevenson and a James Conner? Like, I feel like they're all the same, man.
No, they're all the same. And honestly, I know this is crazy to talk about. This is actually crazy town. But I think you could convince me on going Kyler here, and then we never draft another quarterback.
Really?
Yeah, I think you could convince me on this.
It's Kyler just came off the board though.
He just drafted.
Yeah,
I said it, and he literally got picked. So
honestly, I'm okay. I'm okay that he got drafted because I wasn't really trying to do the double QB. I feel like we got to just take a shot at one of these wide receivers. Like, that's probably just got to be the next move. But again, you get into this tier right here where it feels like a lot of these guys are higher ceiling, but no real floor unless you are looking at a guy like Deontay Johnson. I think his floor is pretty safe. And what do you think his ceiling is with Bryce Young here in the Dave Canales offense?
I think hot takey, top 20 wide receiver for me this year.
Yes, I actually really like him this year. And I think he could be one of those wide receivers that sees 125 targets, sees 130 targets, and probably puts up 1,000 yards on 95 to 100 receptions. Like, that could be the kind of season that he has.
If you actually look at the metrics from last year, which I know he didn't play a full season, I know he was injured. He actually had, besides targets, which we all know targets are not given. He actually had the best stat season of his whole entire NFL career based on the metrics. So just putting that now with the Carolina Panthers offense with Bryce Young, who really resembles Ben Roethlisberger, who couldn't throw later in his career. I don't care what people say. Bryce Young does kind of have a noodle arm. I think that benefits Deontay Johnson a ton. So.
Yeah, I agree. Should we just he came off the board. Never mind. I was going to say, should we just lock in him as this pick? But now that he's off the board, we got to look at guys like, I don't know. I mean,
Christian Watson's
Hopkins,
it for me.
Swift, Watson. You like Watson?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, talk to me. Why?
I think if you look at, I saw a tweet. Someone put it out on Twitter. Like, when he was actually playing, like, he's the clear wide receiver one. And we just, the health has been, those hamstrings are literally like Mike Evans but the only difference is Christian Watson can't play through it. And Mike Evans can. So I like that. And then, depending on where you want to go. I mean, Rashee Rice could be interesting.
I was looking at him. I was wondering if we should take the gamble on the suspension this year, or do you think that they just push it down the road? Because there's really no other wide receivers like Rashee Rice left on the board. Like, his ceiling is so much higher than everybody else right here.
Well, and Christian Watson, or did you already draft Christian Watson?
Yeah, we just got Christian Watson.
Cool. So then, yeah, I'm cool to go Rice here.
I'm okay with that. I think we should do that. This is either going to be, I know people see the likely to be suspended, but I saw something today where they might not actually suspend him this year. Some of the stuff is already being dropped, and like they're asking it to be dropped for the Dallas incident, not the racing incident. That was not something that was dropped. But I do think Rashee Rice is going to be one of the biggest ADP values we have ever seen if he doesn't get suspended. Like, the people that gamble on him, if he doesn't get suspended, they will be probably getting a 4th round talent at the wide receiver position in your redraft leagues, but you're drafting him in, where did we get him? The 8th round, 9th round?
Yeah. Right. 1, 2,
Yeah, 8th round.
Eighth
You got him
round.
at the 801. So I don't know. You think he's still going to be suspended this year, or what do you?
I think max he's getting 4 games, if not nothing. And Andrew, I have this serious confession to make. I have an issue with. I was all in on Deshaun Watson. I thought the value ADP was just so good. I did get burned. I'm same thing with Rashee Rice. These guys literally have criminal
Careful now.
issues or backgrounds, and I'm like all in on them. It's ridiculous. Kareem Hunt, same thing. Like I think for me, the key is with these players is you just have to take your moral compass out of the way, and you have to just think logically about how the NFL is as a whole and as an organization, and then you just draft the most talented players, and usually the rest plays itself out. Unless you're Calvin Ridley and somehow bet on a game, and then you got a whole year,
Yeah,
So that
whatever.
makes sense to me. Talk
Yeah,
to me.
whatever. So look, man, let's look at this team and let's start kind of game planning here, because we do have this team right here: 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 5 wide receivers, 1 tight end. So we're pretty wide receiver heavy. How many more wide receivers do you feel like should be added to a roster like this? Now we have 18 rounds, so you probably are going 1 quarterback, 1 backup quarterback, especially because we took 1 early. That's 2. Are you taking the backup tight end? Probably, for sure, right?
Yeah. Kyle Pitts is a little shaky as much as
Okay,
I
so
think we got
that's
to be on him.
4, which leaves us with 14 other spots to play these 2 positions. And eventually we have to start taking a bunch of these running backs just to try and fill out that room.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Probably 2 more wide receivers maybe on this whole roster?
I agree.
2 more?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And are you thinking we should go in on that running back now? Like at least one of them or 2 of them?
Yeah, I think we go at least 1.
At least one?
If not 2. It depends. It depends on if we have a run real quick here. Because
Yeah, let's see.
I have a feeling we're
you got
approaching.
guys like Moss, Connor, Mostert. All of those guys could be good this year.
So I think, and here in this tier, so I know we've talked. I know you love some. I think you love some Devin Singletary, if I remember correctly. Have we talked about that or
not that
really?
much, to be honest.
Oh goodness. Okay, never mind. I like Javonte Williams here too. I think this interesting tier of Javonte Williams, Nick Chubb, and Devin Singletary back to back. I do really like the value, on all 3 of those guys. I think Trey Benson, that's an interesting one. I think it's like the upside shot, but I'd much prefer James Conner because I think James Conner is going to hold him off a little bit more than people think.
I agree. I think, I mean, most of the dynasty analysis that I've been giving for Benson has been the fact that next year when Connor's contract is out, that's when Benson will get the team, if he performs well enough this year, if they feel comfortable with him. But I think this year is going to be the farewell tour for James Conner. He should get used pretty heavily.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for that. So we'll have to see if like a James Conner, if he falls to us, that'd be incredible. I don't think he will, but
yeah, I don't know if he will. And there he goes. I don't mind a Javonte Williams. If you want to go a Javonte Williams, I'm okay with that as our RB2. And then, is there anything worth a damn at this wide receiver position?
nope.
Nothing. It dries up so quickly, to be honest.
That's why we
How
went
do you
heavy.
feel about an Adonai Mitchell? Like he's more just an upside swing in that Colts offense.
Yeah, I mean, cool. He had the cool highlight catch, and all the reports are good. But like, I much prefer Josh Downs just as the second option in the Colts
Yeah.
receiving room. But I
What about
understand.
Jacoby?
What about Jacoby?
Yeah, he was pretty good last year.
He was.
Think that'll remain the same or at least be better with Minshew under center? I assume Minshew is going to be the guy under center, don't you?
Yeah, we're here on the clock. So.
We had Javonte come off the board, so now we're looking at this. I feel like if we're going to go with the running back, which I think we still should, I feel like there's nobody with a higher ceiling than Raheem Mostert.
I agree. Just do it.
You just chase that Dolphins offense and just hope you get some weeks out of them. How do we feel about double tapping that running back, or do you want to go with?
I think we have to double tap the running back right now.
Okay. Singletary, Brian Robinson, Benson, those are kind of the guys I'm looking at.
Yeah. I mean, I think this team is full of upside here, so I just say we go Trey Benson and
Just
say
swing the upside.
swing it. Yeah.
I'm down. I feel like we're limiting ourselves slightly because I feel like our team is so risky every single week. Like we could be a Rashi Rice suspension and a Trey Benson just sitting behind Connor all year and a Christian Watson injury away from this team being like the last place team in our league.
You could also convince yourself that no other team in this league has the similar type upside. That if Raheem Mostert is the clear one, if Trey Benson overtakes Connor, if Kenneth Walker becomes everything that we've ever hoped him to be, Garrett Wilson cements himself as a top 5 wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. top 12. Like,
Yeah.
I think you're probably right. I think the floor is actually in the basement here, but it's a 3-story ceiling that we have. So, we're at the roulette table and we're rolling the dice.
We'll see. We're rolling the dice here. I'm not sure how I feel about this right now, but we still got half a draft. I think we still got 8 more rounds, so we'll see how we clean this up. But so far, I feel like we're a little shaky right now. Let's see, man. Let's just look back at this board so far, and let's talk about what stands out. Just through these first 5 rounds right here, what are you looking at? What is standing out to you from a value standpoint, ADP standpoint? Like, where are we at with these 5 rounds?
Yeah. I mean, like in regards to our draft or like just the board
The
in general.
the board in general.
Yeah, I think Brandon Ayuk, to me, that was an interesting pick there in the second round. Like, I think debating Brandon Ayuk over Devontae Adams, I think that's a question mark that I'm seeing just off the top and I'm thinking about. I do like the value of Sam Laporta at the 3-1. I think that's pretty good. Nico Collins, I think also an interesting, like, how are you feeling with him now having to compete with Stephon Diggs, with Tank Dell? Feels a little bit rich to me. Like, I think I prefer Mike Evans. I think you can make the case for Malik Neighbors over Nico Collins in redraft just because Malik's going to get 140 targets. But, quality of target ain't going to be good, but he's going to get 140. So, I think those are some of the things that stick out to me here off the top. And I wish we would have had Josh Allen fall a spot. I think we were so close on the drop and we were just one pick too short.
Yeah, I agree. I think just me looking at the board right now, like something that stands out is one, the fact that we're still drafting Stephon Diggs in the top 21 wide receivers. He's what, second round? I mean, top 21 players. He's in the second round. That feels like it's a little bit riskier these days. Even though as much as I love Stephon Diggs, feels a little bit risky. I also feel like what else does Mike Evans have to do for us to give him some respect, man? Like I feel like every year we're drafting him in the 3rd, 4th round and he's still producing like wide receiver 1 numbers and we don't ever adjust.
So this is my thing. I'm gonna add on to the Stephon Diggs thing. I feel like we saw the floor start to break out under Stephon Diggs, like that age finally start to show towards the end of last season. I mean, granted, he started off amazing. So I feel like a lot of people are just writing it off as the offense changed, things benefited for some of the other guys, not Stephon Diggs. I don't think that's the case. And now you add him into an offense that has so much target competition. And then you have Mike Evans, who has his quarterback resigned in Baker Mayfield, who gave him a better fantasy football season than he had under Tom freaking Brady. Like, I understand Mike Evans is getting up there in age, but like we know the issues. Mike Evans already has hamstring issues. Like it's not like all of a sudden he's going to develop hamstring issues. He's had them like his whole career, and he somehow still goes out there get you 1,012. So those are my thoughts. Shout out Jalen.
Yeah, man, I agree. I just feel like, and you got to account for the fact that Tampa gave him new money. They said, "Hey, good job for your performance this year. Let's give you some more money." Like they gave him that extra extension. So I don't know. He feels like a value that people are still sleeping on for whatever reason. But look, we're about to be up here in a couple picks. I thought maybe we would get Jacoby Myers. I talked about Jacoby Myers at our last pick, and he was still on the board just a couple picks ago. But we're kind of getting in this range now where we need to kind of pick a direction. Are we swinging full upside at this point? Like, I think that's kind of the direction that we need to go, right?
Yeah. I got 2 guys that I'm looking at right now. staring down my
Corum?
barrel. Yep, that would be one.
Corum's one of the ones that I'm looking at.
Yep.
Do we want to lock that one in?
Yeah, I think that's a lock.
Okay, what is the other one?
I'm thinking so it's between Kirk Cousins to me or Josh Downs.
What else do we got here at the quarterback position down the road? Any
I guess we
potential?
can wait
We
on a
still got
Watson.
Rodgers a couple
Yeah,
rounds.
I'm cool to wait
Maybe
on
at the
him.
next turn we can grab Rodgers.
Yeah.
And if not, we fall into a Baker Mayfield. I feel like he's fine as a QB2.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay, let's go Downs. And then we'll go from there. So we end up going here with Blake Corum and Josh Downs. And that's one thing that I wanted to actually touch on because we got in those first 5 rounds and we still had Kyren Williams coming off the board here in the second round. Now, we did have some news today that Kyren Williams is missing some of these offseason practices already because he has a foot injury, opening up the door for a guy like Blake Corum, who I understand, Caleb, you were not the biggest Blake Corum fan. There's some Michigan-Ohio State rivalry there. I get it. But I have been a big advocate of Blake Corum throughout this draft process. In the Dynasty space, he was always my RB3, stayed my RB3 this whole time. I feel like getting a guy like Blake Corum down here, especially now that we have guys like Kyren Williams who are already missing time, this feels like Blake Corum's opportunity could be almost immediately.
So we clearly have some. Yeah, shout out to
What
South
up, Adam, man?
Adam in the chat. I think for me, when we're looking at Blake Corum, like he's a better prospect than Kyren Williams was coming out of school. Like I can admit that. Clearly, the draft capital says that. And Kyren Williams, absolutely incredible coming out like this last year. Incredible efficiency. But then you see them draft Blake Corum in the 3rd round, and it just makes you think. Just makes you pause for a quick second and think, like, why would they do that? And
we thought this was going to happen. Like most people who had a brain felt like Los Angeles was going to add another running back in this room.
I think the argument for the people that were blind was it's like Sean McVay loves just to use one guy. So why are we going to invest significant draft capital in a number 2 if we're not ever going to use a number 2? And then the thought process then becomes, well, maybe because he wasn't necessarily drafted to be the number 2. So
said you're hitting the Brian Windhorse.
The Brian Windhorse with the what? The little
this?
Was it this? I don't
maybe
know.
Did you do that? I don't know.
I don't know, but maybe I did. Shout out Adam if I did.
Well, maybe you did. I was listening to you talk. I was also sitting here.
Adam, I put on a little bit of weight, but we can't be talking Brian Windhorst here. I'm not that bad.
That's crazy.
Like, I'm not to the triple 4th chin, you know?
That's crazy. He said, why would they do that? There you go. But yeah, man, it just feels like to me, we should have seen this coming. People who didn't were either people who were very, very high on Kyren Williams and didn't want it to happen. So they told themselves it wasn't going to happen. But I think when you looked at the free agent class, when you looked at some of the other stuff that was going to happen, like there was a ton of running back opportunity this year for somebody to get added. Even if it was like, I don't even think, even if it was not Blake Corum, as much as I like Blake Corum, let's say it was a guy like Marshawn Lloyd, or let's say it was a guy like Jalen Wright that got added to this backfield, you would still feel the same way. Like it would probably still feel worrisome for everybody who rosters Kyren Williams or who has had high hopes for Kyren Williams coming into 2024.
No, I'm right there with you. So on the same wavelength, I want to get your opinion because I know we haven't talked about this. How are we feeling about the Breece Hall situation? Granted, I know they had Braylon Allen in the 4th. You also add Isaiah Davis. Like, for me, that feels significant that they added 2 running backs. Not that it's going to eat into the necessarily like overall potential, but do we think the workload decreases just a little bit this year for Breece Hall?
I mean, even if it does, he's still a top 5 running back. Like, I don't really think it's going to knock him down because you also have to think about the efficiencies that he should then gain by having Aaron Rodgers under center. So I don't necessarily feel like a lesser volume from him, assuming it's not like drastic. I don't assume that they're just going to like force feed Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis a ton of touches, but you would assume that they're not necessarily going to just fade Breece Hall out of the offense because of what he was doing last year. He was like their entire offense basically last year. I know Garrett Wilson, we all like Garrett Wilson, but when Zach Wilson is playing quarterback, you feed Breece Hall. That's the way that they did it, and it's the way that it happened. So I don't necessarily think that should be worrisome for Breece Hall, and I still am comfortable drafting Breece Hall as like a top 3 to top 5 running back in my leagues. Redraft, Dynasty, anything. It doesn't matter.
I hear you.
Are you worried about it at all?
No.
Okay. So we're about to be back up, actually, and Baker Mayfield came off. Kirk Cousins came off. So we missed out on that backup quarterback. Okay. Are we fading this entirely to oblivion, or are we gonna take Deshaun Watson here?
Well, we got Adam in the chat. So Adam didn't just get to hear my spiel on Deshaun Watson and my love for him in Dynasty when I was buying him at I thought it was like round 3 to round 4 prices. It even got lower than that. I'm still upset about that. Shout out Johnny
says D-Watt.
But yeah, I think it does have to be some Deshaun Watson.
He says it's Mike. It's okay. Oh, Mike, so he said I'll let it slide. I say we go D-Watt.
Okay, I'm cool.
We're about to get autoed anyway, so now we have to make another selection.
Well, it's your pick, so you get to choose.
I kind of just selected D-Watt. How do we feel about a guy like Antonio Gibson in New England? Do you like it or no? Or do you like a guy like Ty Chandler more, who's going to be the backup to Aaron Jones?
Yeah, we just start to get a nasty. Yeah, or even so many of these guys I could convince myself on. I think we have to go Gibson.
I didn't get it. We got Darnell Mooney. Whatever.
It's okay. We needed another wide receiver.
It's whatever.
So all good.
Okay, so how many times do we need the same story about RB with little to no draft capital who far exceeds expectations and then gets good backup competition? Coming from the biggest J-Rob truther circa 2020, 2021. The auto of autos. That definitely was the auto of autos. Nobody even thought about Darnell Mooney. We didn't give a damn about Darnell Mooney, and we got Darnell Mooney.
I will say this. In Dynasty, I am buying Darnell Mooney a lot of places just because I feel like if Kirk Cousins likes his wide receiver twos, we've seen like a guy like KJ Osborne have like fantasy football relevant weeks. So I do like Darnell Mooney, but I think for our build here, we needed another RB.
Yeah, we did. I wanted to take. I should have just vetoed your opinion and just took my guy Antonio Gibson, and not necessarily because I'm an Antonio Gibson truther, but I just did a video recently where I talked about like handcuffs that are one injury or one underperforming starter away from being like actually relevant fantasy football assets. And I think that Antonio Gibson is one of those guys. He's a Ramondre Stevenson injury or a bad season for Ramondre Stevenson where they just switch it and go over to Antonio Gibson. And having Drake May under center there, I think he's probably going to be more likely than guys like Mac Jones in years past to have this be an efficient offense. I'm saying more likely because we obviously don't know, but I don't know, man. It feels like he has a shot. And when we have a build like we do right now where running back 2 is Mostert, running back 3 is Benson and Corum, like we should just be looking for shots at guys on the running back or at the running back position.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Cheap Jordan Addison comp for Mooney could be worse. It could be worse. Could be very worse. We could have gotten autoed like, I don't know, my man three-legged Drake.
Maybe. So look, dude, we got autoed a wide receiver there at what round was that?
Yeah, so what we only need one 14th more
round. Receiver. Yeah, we probably got to double tap the running back position right here. Like we almost put ourselves in that box, I would feel like. Do you feel the same?
We have a team that is literally the floor is not even in the basement. It's in like the bunker. Like it could just go down so fast. And
I'm not gonna lie to you, Caleb. We might have to draft another one, bro.
This is so bad. But I'll say this: the upside is literally like we just won so much money. We're swimming in it. Like there's no in between. Like this team is either it or it's not. And so yeah, no, I think I agree with Johnny. I do like. I was almost ready for some Chuba this last round, but yeah, I think we're here. And I think the other interesting guy, you got Khalil Herbert staring us down too. That's an interesting one. I know I've talked about Keaton Mitchell on my channel. How do you feel
Herbert versus Roschon?
I think it's still Herbert.
Okay.
And so
you like Keaton Mitchell despite the fact that he
coming off an ACL and with Derrick
Yeah.
Henry? Yeah, I do. And I also think Damian Pierce has some upside if something were to happen to Joe Mixon. And I know that's a big if.
Yeah. Said Foreman. How do you think about Foreman being what RB3 right now behind Chubb and Ford?
Jerome Ford. Yeah.
Do you think that Chubb is going to be ready to go week 1? Or you think he's starting this year off on the pup?
I think he probably starts this year off on the pup, but I think Jerome Ford has proven enough for me. Shout out to, I didn't see that. So clearly I thought I heard something. I guess maybe I saw something wrong. So, but Mike, I trust you. So yeah, get him off the board. Did he just go? Did Keaton Mitchell just go?
No, he's still there.
Oh, there he is. Sorry.
Yeah. I think are you still looking at, you like Chuba here then, huh?
Yep. I think we have to go that way.
Okay. Well, let's go Chuba. I'm okay with Chuba, Khalil. Chuba just came off the board. Chuba, Khalil. I don't mind taking a shot on Elijah Mitchell. I think still has some upside. If McCaffrey goes down, we know that offense can support RB1s.
You could also convince me on Estime.
I could hear that argument, but it feels very murky. I do something about this. I know it sounds crazy, and maybe this is just my former admiration for him coming out, but just put it in the chat. Actually, Madison feels like it's Zamir and who? Lawabe? Like Madison? Somebody's going to have some relevancy, and Zamir White's not necessarily a pass catcher. If anybody's going to be the pass catcher in that backfield, it's going to be Madison.
Okay.
But we talked about Herbert, so let's go Khalil Herbert first. But now I'm going to let you decide, Caleb. Elijah or Madison? Or do we try and get Madison on the next one back?
Yeah, let's play the ADP game. Let's go Elijah, and then
all right.
See what happens.
We'll go there. Let's look at this team right now, man. I hate looking at this team. I'm not going to lie.
No, it's not as bad as you're making it seem. We're fine.
I don't know, man. I don't like this squad. Hurts, Watson, Kenneth Walker, Raheem Mostert, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Khalil Herbert, Elijah Mitchell, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Zay Flowers, Christian Watson, Rashee Rice, Josh Downs, Darnell Mooney, and Kyle Pitts. So we probably need we have 2 picks left. Probably need to take another running back and a tight end.
And I would just like to say this because the team doesn't look great. But if we did not auto on that second pick when we were debating and we got stuck with Marvin Harrison Jr., I think we feel a little bit better about this team. Not gonna lie.
You think so?
If we go if we scroll back up, we'll see like who we could have had. I think that makes you feel better. Like
if we take London, Barkley, Adams, like
I think if we would have gone Jonathan Taylor, like if we would have gone Jonathan Taylor or Barkley there instead of Marvin Harrison Jr., I think we feel a little bit better about this team.
If we get Jonathan Taylor there, I feel way better. But you're right. And then that probably doesn't – yeah, you're probably right. I don't know, man. Says elite quarterbacks or elite quarterback upside, RBs are fine, wide receivers could pop. I mean, that's where we're at, right? Like, and I think that's the thing is this team is – it's going to be a ride, a wild ride all year long because you're going to have weeks where you get blown out the water and then you're going to have weeks where you are the guy that scores the most points in your league. So
yeah,
well, I typically don't like to have teams like that. And I think that's why I'm reacting the way that I am because I don't like that much variance on a week-to-week basis because I think the steady wins, you know, a high floor, maybe your ceiling's not as high. I understand the high ceiling is what can win you the championship. But that's the 1 week out of the year. You need to get there first. And I like doing the higher floor.
I hear you. Well, this will be a shout out to Mike in the chat, but I think we'll call this team Bon Jovi "Living on a Prayer." That's from his era. So that'll be what we call this team. So
there you go. All right, man. Well, let's look at these tight ends because we have to get that back up. A couple guys that stand out. Your guy Likely.
Yeah, he's there.
Dolchich.
Yeah,
Fant.
Yeah, I guess you could also. I know Tucker Kraft is out until like the preseason too, but I do like some Tucker Kraft. Maybe. I don't know. You know, I don't know if anyone's actually ever shared Mike's. Mike, I don't actually know how old you are. The beard is deceiving. I'll say
It's
that.
54.
Is that how old he is?
No, I don't know.
I was about to say. I actually thought that was a little high, to be honest, Mike. So shout out to that.
The beard is 54.
The beard is 54.
He's been growing it for 14 years.
Oh goodness.
Since he was 40. Actually, his 40th birthday is when he started growing his beard. I'm just kidding. But yeah, he said, "God damn it." But we have this tight end pick we got to make, man. I'm gonna defer the tight end to you. You select our tight end because if he is available, I'm taking Alexander Madison.
Yeah, well, that can happen.
He should be available. He should be available.
I can't.
He said once I followed Andrew, it started I started growing it out.
That
so yeah, 14 years ago.
14 years ago? Sheesh.
Yeah.
Mike should join Duck Dynasty with that beard.
Damn.
Be a duck hunter. He'd fit right in.
Dude, look, I'm gonna have to draft another team off stream.
Are you really? That's how bad this is making you feel. I honestly don't think it's that bad.
Okay, talk to me, man. Okay, let's walk through this and tell me why. Actually, let me tell you where I don't feel good about this.
It's just literally the running back. That's all that's all that's killing you. And the fact
that
we
don't know. I'll tell you. I think get out of here, Mike. He says do your homework before bed. We hit 1,800. There we go. Appreciate the notification there, Roll. That's what we like to see. So appreciate you guys for helping us hit 1,800 tonight. I think because I don't like Christian Watson. I'm not a Christian Watson guy. I think you're right. The second round auto on Marvin Harrison made me feel iffy. And then also, I'm not a Kenneth Walker guy, and he's our RB1. So I feel like I'm looking at our RB1 as like I don't know. I would have much rather had James Cook there.
Okay, but we wouldn't have to have drafted Kenneth Walker if we got Jonathan Taylor. So we literally would get Jonathan Taylor, we'd flip out Marvin Harrison Jr., and then we probably end up drafting another wide receiver in like the 4th or 5th round.
So, yeah, let's see it. And you know what? We'll do that after we make these two selections. We'll go look at the full draft board and we'll just kind of like go through this and see what we would do differently. Because I think that's where the value is in something like this. Like you want to do these mock drafts. This is the reason why it's a mock draft. Thank God this isn't a real league because I'd kill I'm just kidding. But yeah, look, dude, I can't. We'll go through the draft board. Who are you thinking at tight end?
Who?
Dolchich. He's the only guy left.
Yeah, that's who
Madison just went. The only guy I was looking forward to.
Goodness gracious. Well,
okay.
Give me 3-legged Greg.
Hear me out.
Are you gonna sell me on Will Shipley? What about whoa.
Who's the backup to Isaiah Pacheco right now?
Okay, sure. It's CH. I think you could also get me on Dylan Lobb. However you say his name. He's been doing pretty good in camp.
You think so?
I think he potentially has. They said the poor man CMC or Will Shipley. I think whichever way we want to go.
If we're picking between the two, give me the murkier backfield. I don't want the guy behind Saquon. I'll take the guy behind Zamir White.
Okay.
But I think there's an argument for CEH as the last dart throw, man. Like, I know Pacheco, he's good, but he runs like he's going to tear his ACL any minute. And if he does, who are we running in that backfield? Amani Bailey?
I hear you. Now,
I don't know, man.
Is there a piece of you that I think you could also really sell me?
Saved you from yourself. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think we might have to go CH here if he makes it back to us.
I think we're done, right?
No, are we? I didn't realize.
That was it.
Oh, shoot. Just kidding.
Yeah, that was it. No, we're good. So let's look at this draft board because we need to talk through this. Mike says Dad's got to get ready for work. You kids keep your sleepover noise to a minimum. Mama's sleeping. Got you, Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad. Anyways, So this first round, we ended up going Garrett Wilson. I don't have any gripes about that. I think Garrett Wilson's a fine pick there. I think he still has wide receiver one upside in this offense with Aaron Rodgers under center. It's that round two where we're talking Garrett Wilson for too long and we get autoed. I think ideally there is where you say we go Jonathan Taylor. That's who I wanted. I think that's the selection there. And if that is the case, we're not forced to take Kenneth Walker here at the 601 where we can go, I don't know, Deontay Johnson, Christian Watson.
Yeah.
Or Jaden Reed. Yeah, Jaden Reed. Which makes it feel, well, we probably don't take Christian Watson at that point then. I don't know. You take a couple different picks there. It probably looks a little bit better. It just feels more balanced. Because I think when I'm looking at this roster and I'm looking at where we're at, this is what makes me nervous. This right here, what we're looking at, that running back room. That running back room feels like there could be a stretch during the year where we're getting zeros out of some of these guys. And the problem is that now this won't apply to your redraft leagues because obviously we have waivers and things like that. We can make those movements. But in a best ball like this, where we don't get to make those moves, obviously Benson Corum, they should have upside. Does it happen week one? I don't know. Mostert, aged kind of running back, but also has some injury concerns. Kenneth Walker, you said the argument with him too is he's got to stay healthy. And then you got guys like Khalil Herbert, Elijah Mitchell, Dylan Lawabe that are like backups right now, probably to begin with, and we'll see what happens. But I think that's what makes me nervous is there's a chance that we could have very little points coming out of that during a stretch during the season. So I don't know.
Yeah, we probably can't see the draft board now that this just happened.
No, we can see the draft.
Can you pull up the – yeah. So if we pull up the draft board, this is what I think is interesting right now, is when we look at, like, if you go to, like, the first round, I think they're all backups except for – yeah, it's true. True. But I think the second round, honestly, like, what pick, Andrew – like, if we're talking just from this, like, the top 6 picks to me are, like, the biggest advantage right now.
Oh,
I think,
let's see.
Because
go up here?
Yeah, if you scroll all the way up to the top.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, cool. So, like, the Justin Jefferson, even potentially, like, Bijan, like, all that tier above, like, I feel like after that, I mean, maybe you could argue Brees Hall, but, like, I feel like when you're then going, like, that team that was Puka or Brandon Ayuk, or like us, where we go Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., compared to the team that got, like, Jamar Chase and Debo, which you don't feel great about. It might have gone in a different way. But I just feel like those teams at the front, you're just getting such a stud at the top that with the second round being so even, it's giving the advantage to those teams because honestly, like, what's the difference between Stephon Diggs, and Nico Collins? Like, not a huge difference, but
yeah, I mean,
I
think like when you get into that type of conversation where you have like the Houston wide receivers, like you just take the guy who probably is the cheapest in that offense and live with the results of what that is. And so at that point, like when you're deciding between Diggs and Nico, you take Nico because he's cheaper. But if you're going to take any of them, you probably just take Dell down there at the 405.
Yeah, no, I love that value. I just think for me, like, I think the biggest thing when we're talking just even from like, it doesn't even have to be underdog, like just a redraft perspective right now.
Yeah.
Those first 6 picks are absolute dynamite. And if I have one of these back end picks, I think you're definitely starting off from a little bit of a hole.
Yeah, you're starting off in a hole, and you also have to make sure that you like being where we're at, and it's tough to do when you're live streaming and trying to give analysis on your picks as you're doing it. It makes it a little bit tougher. And also the fact that these are 30-second clocks, and most likely in your home leagues and things like that, you're not going to take 30 seconds to make a pick. So that changes things quite a bit. But when you were sitting there at that 11 and 12, at least how I feel today, walking away from this first one. Now, this is the first of probably many that we're going to end up doing. So it's not like, yeah, anyways, we'll figure this out as the offseason goes on because we are going to get you everything you need for your redraft leagues. But I feel like you have to reach. First impression is you have to reach in that second or that back half of the first round. And probably I think the best thing that I could possibly hope for would be like an AJ Brown falls to us where we were at. If somebody had a little bit more hopium in Garrett Wilson and we got AJ Brown, I feel really good about AJ Brown because I still think AJ is the top 5 wide receiver. Do you?
Oh, easily, especially in redraft. And I think even if Jahmyr Gibbs had fallen to us there, and Garrett Wilson had gotten the pick before, and then we get Jahmyr Gibbs, and maybe it's still like the same upside play, and maybe we draft Marvin Harrison Jr., maybe we don't. I still feel like the way that the draft board fell, I still feel like this, the 12, it feels like we're getting 2 like second round talents more than getting a first and the second round talent. And so I think
For sure.
that's my cool. Maybe Garrett Wilson turns into what we think he could turn into, like the wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 on a points per game basis. But like, is that realistic? Probably not. So we're taking a big potential shot with 2 guys in the back.
You said it. You said it right there. You hit it nail on the head. It doesn't feel like we have a first round pick on this team. It doesn't. It feels like we have 2 second round picks in Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, maybe some upside definitely some upside in guys like Jalen Hurts, Zay Flowers, Kyle Pitts. But then I feel like we I don't know. I think after round 6, this is where I didn't really enjoy the rest of the way we filled it out. I actually can get down with what we have here in the top 5 rounds. Like the way we started this off, Wilson, Harrison, Hurts, Flowers, Pitts, that felt good. I think it's as we got later, I didn't love the way that it panned out for me.
And I think it really just came down to we didn't get this stud RB at the top, and now not only do we not have a stud wide receiver or RB that we got earlier, we're then stuck having Kenneth Walker as our RB1. Like, if everything goes the right way for these guys, cool. Maybe like we said, this team ends up being a lot better than we thought, but a lot of it.
I do think as well, like that 9th round was big for us. Like, let's look at this 9th round right here because you have, I'll just put it right at the very top so it's easy to follow. You have guys like Zach Moss, who I think we feel a lot more comfortable with. Guys like James Conner, who we felt a lot more comfortable with. Javonte Williams. Like, if one of those guys falls to us instead of Raheem Mostert, and then maybe we're able to, rather than going Mostert Benson, we're going Connor Mostert, we feel way better about that because of the safety I think that brings to our running back position. Javonte Mostert, Moss Mostert, either of those, that feels a lot better to me.
Yeah, I know I was targeting Javonte in that round.
Yeah.
And then he gets sniped 2 picks before us. So it is what happens when you're playing in some of these underdog. I mean, the ADPs are so you're drafting against other people that really care and know their ADPs. You're not drafting in a home league. So like it just, we kind of got stuck in a hard place because we needed running back so bad. We couldn't have pivoted to another position. So we had to take the upside shot on Raheem Mostert being the RB1, which with Jalen Wright and no, it's like not going to happen. And then Trey Benson being behind James Conner. It's like, oh yeah.
I do think we fell into a little bit of a blessing here with the Deshaun Watson pick because really what is the difference between a guy like Rodgers, a guy like Mayfield, and a guy like Watson? They all are kind of the same, right?
Well, if you look at the points per game, I mean, Deshaun Watson, besides the game where he got injured, it really last year, as much as it wasn't great from like an actual quarterback leading the Browns to victory season, because then we saw Joe Flacco come in and be amazing. Like Deshaun Watson wasn't having a bad fantasy football season. And so I think going into this year, I'm super excited about the potential. Now, I'm not saying Deshaun Watson's going to become back to being his top 5 quarterback ways. Like, I'm not saying that there's a reason he's being drafted where he's being drafted. But I think the argument is like he does have a safer rushing floor compared to guys like Baker, Aaron, Kirk Cousins. So I think you have that going for you, as well as the fact that like the offense isn't bad. Like they actually trade for Jerry Jeudy. They get him, depending on how you view Jerry Jeudy, like he's a better wide receiver too than Elijah Moore. So I do like what
who is still there.
Who's still there. And now it's the wide receiver 3. You got David Njoku, who really started to break out last year. So like there are a lot of good pieces. And plus add in the fact, I think a lot of people aren't considering this. They did bring in, Deontay Foreman. They still have Jerome Ford, but Nick Chubb's coming off that injury. So they might be throwing the ball a lot more to start the season, which is only going to benefit Deshaun Watson.
Yep. Yeah. All right, man. Well, I want to sum this up. We'll go quickly through this because I don't want to go too long, but let's just go through like rapid fire, some of the best and worst picks in each round. Like in this first round, actually, we don't even need to talk about the first round. The first round's everybody's a good pick for the most part.
Yeah.
In the second round, is there a value that stands out to you?
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor going at the what pick is that at the
2-6.
2-6? I
I
love.
think Kyron. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best pick.
I would agree. I think his ADP there is really good. I'm not a big fan of that ADP for Diggs at the 2-9. I also don't love the Kyron Williams at the 2-11.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there.
All right, third round. Where are we feeling for the? Actually, I said it earlier. I think Mike Evans is a smash pick in this round.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think Nico Collins, I think, is still a little high for my overall liking, but so Diggs also went super high. So I know that guy was getting the stack with both of those uh, wide receivers. I think
Did he get
what
both? He did get both.
he did get both. Is Waddle? I think this is my question with Waddle, and this is where I've been debating. I know the role who was in here earlier is a huge Waddle guy. I can't get on board. It feels like us in the fantasy space, like we've been propping Waddle up for like the last 2 years based on 2 seasons ago, and like, is the upside still there with Tyreek? Like, that's my biggest question. And I know getting him in the third round, it doesn't feel bad because last year you were having to draft
Yeah.
him in the second. But I'm still like, there's some guys behind Jalen Waddle that went like like we were saying with Mike or Malik Neighbors or Devontae Smith, where I feel like the floor is just a little bit safer and they have similar upside.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I were to pick mine, I think I don't love the Devontae Smith in this round. And honestly, it does feel appropriate for the most part. Like I do think he is in that range, but I just can't imagine myself drafting much Devontae Smith this year. He feels very capped as like a for fantasy football, not for real life. For fantasy football, a good, not great wide receiver too.
I
Would you
think
agree
once
with that or no?
I agree with it, but I think that's like once we get into this range, I think seeing these ultimate guys that every year there's guys, in the fourth, fifth, and sixth round that break out as wide receivers. I think it's harder for me this year to kind of tell because like there's some guys like a Tank Dell you could see kind of moving up, like Zay Flowers, like we took George Pickens, I mean, being the clear wide receiver one for the Steelers, but like DK Metcalf, what's his overall upside? Like, I think a lot of these ADPs are
Yeah.
going to definitely flip on their head like over the coming months, as I think a lot of people really start to dive deep into like the metrics and numbers and um, like DK Metcalf, high end wide receiver too, but you're having to draft him, in the third, which is crazy.
Yeah, I agree. How are we feeling about this fourth round here? Because you got guys in here at the running back position that I feel like are being drafted kind of high. Josh Jacobs, he feels like he's being drafted a little high to me. How do you feel about Jacobs going into this year?
Well, if you look right now, it's kind of insane what these running back ADPs are. Like Josh Jacobs is currently going off the board typically like around ADP of 37, RB 10. I don't understand how he's going ahead of Travis Etienne. Like, someone explain that to me. Like, I'm five because Travis Etienne had a better year last year. Like I know there's all the rumors that Doug Peterson is going to, they want to reduce his snap share. He had like a 74% snap share. Like, even if it goes down to 65%, I think a lot of people are worried that, it was all volume. There was no efficiency because his yards per carry went down a little bit last year. But we look at Josh Jacobs in this Green Bay offense and like, cool. We've seen them absolutely produce fantasy football relevant. Aaron Jones has been a killer the last few seasons. It's better than where he was with the Raiders. There's still a lot more mouths to feed in Green Bay than there was with the Raiders. So for me, I can't get on board with the Josh Jacobs ahead of a guy like Travis Etienne. So that's also why, like, I think the value, like, I'd rather have had Travis Etienne. And I think the value of Travis Etienne in this round is really where it is exciting to me, especially like if you waited until the fourth round to get hero RB with Travis Etienne. I feel like that's
Yeah.
sometimes can be a good strategy.
Yeah, that feels like a great strategy. It seems like a lot of people are getting really excited about Isaiah Pacheco this year. He's on the thumbnail of this video. Like, I feel like people are they were worried, at least in the dynasty space, people were worried that maybe Kansas City might add somebody this offseason. Then they go out and they add nobody. And now it feels like Isaiah Pacheco's set for another big year. I want to say last year in PPR leagues, and don't quote me on this, maybe you can fact check me with your extra screen right there, but I think he was averaging like 14 to 15 fantasy points per game. So he was a big player for our fantasy teams down the stretch last year. But it still feels like most people don't give Isaiah Pacheco the respect that he's going to get. I think there's an argument you could take Pacheco over Josh Jacobs.
So yeah, he did have 15.3 fantasy points per game. So you were right in that Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Sorry. I thought it like froze on my screen or something. No, but like 15.3 fantasy points per game. So it's hard for me. Are you taking like, do you think Pacheco is appropriately valued, or do you think he's too high? Like where are you at with him?
He's probably appropriate. I think actually what I'm getting from this round, just the more I look at it, is I actually don't love the ADP of Jacobs. I don't love the ADP of T. Higgins, but I like the ADP of Travis Etienne, and I actually kind of like the ADP of George Pickens, to be honest.
I think I've been a little bit low in my personal opinion on my like belief and how I've interacted with George Pickens. And so I think that's something that I'm going to, because the fact like I do prefer George Pickens over Christian Kirk over Amari Cooper, who went after him, um, even over Terry McLaurin. But like when you're saying like, would you rather have George Pickens or T Higgins? Like I typically would say T Higgins, even though I don't love T Higgins' value. But I think the ceiling is there for George Pickens. Like, and I don't necessarily know if the ceiling's there for T Higgins. So
Yeah, that's what it is to me. I think when you look at them in those offenses and you say, well, one guy has the ability to lead his team in targets, the other guy doesn't, and that's a big component I think to it for me. But the other is like one has Joe Burrow throwing in the football, the other has Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. So I see where it could be scary with George Pickens, but I think he's a higher ceiling type of player with the same type of floor as a guy like T. Higgins. But I don't know. And then to go back to the Josh Jacobs thing, like I feel like Joe Mixon a whole round later, he is the exact same type of bet as Josh Jacobs is, and you're getting him around later.
And I think Joe Mixon has more receiving upside than a guy like Josh Jacobs, and the similar touchdown upside in a good offense. So no, I'm right there with you.
And didn't have a dip in efficiencies last year that Josh Jacobs had.
And doesn't have the same level of running back competition behind him that Josh Jacobs has.
Did we just say Joe Mixon is the best value pick at the running back position right now? I'm just kidding.
I'm not ready to say that, but I do think like once you get past Travis Etienne, depending on how you view Pacheco, I'm definitely just waiting until Joe Mixon.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree. Josiah says we're sleeping on Jacobs. I think that's the sentiment for a lot of people. Is everybody says you're either high on Jacobs or you're low on Jacobs. There's no in between right now. I feel like
I'll give you all the Jacobs you want as long as you give me Travis Etienne.
There you go. But yeah, man, I don't know. I guess we'll see. It's gonna be interesting to see how these ADPs fluctuate over the offseason as more and more redraft players start to flood the market again and start doing some of these drafts and get back into the swing of things. But yeah, man, if you could summarize this mock draft, this practice into one or two key takeaways, what are you taking away from this very first one?
I think make sure that you get the best players that you can in rounds 1, rounds 2, rounds 3. I'm just kidding. I mean, that's what everyone wants to do. But specifically, don't get autoed in round 2. That's probably my first takeaway. You get stuck with Marvin Harrison Jr. after you already went Garrett Wilson, and you're looking at yourself thinking, who's going to be the producer on this team? Two guys pointing at each other, Spider-Man meme. But it could turn out well. I think you got to be flexible. We both came in with some ideas. Like we wanted Jahmyr Gibbs round 1 for what was my ideal pick. Get sniped, pick ahead. I feel like we kept getting sniped as we were kind of going. So we just kind of had to adjust on the fly. And I think being flexible turns your team into something that you could potentially have. I know Andrew's not as high on this team as I am. I think, like we said, the ceiling's definitely there. There's no floor. So we're definitely feeling a little shaky as we're finishing this draft. I don't think it's that bad. I honestly don't. So other takeaway is I think sometimes you just let the ball roll where it rolls and you kind of go from there. But no, it was a blast, man.
I agree, man. I'm looking to try and see if we can find that way to look at that team one more time. There we go. So this kind of gives us a better look at it. Got some of these. I mean, we did really good actually with some of the exposure. We're pretty across the board. A lot of people with week 10 bye weeks, but I don't think that's a big deal for the most part. It doesn't seem like we have really any cross correlation for the most part from any of that. And we did a good job on those onesies and twosies positions where we didn't get any of that. So feels good for the most part with there. I just think for me, my takeaways are what you said earlier. having one of those top 7, top 8 picks in your one quarterback drafts is going to be a massive advantage this year. And it feels like you are getting a locked and loaded, surefire, stud, first round type of talent. But then when you get to like 9, 10, 11, 12, it feels like those talents kind of start to dwindle. And that's why getting one of those picks, if you play in leagues where you get to choose your draft slot, maybe you're the champion and you get your first choice. That's the way we do it in my redraft leagues, like my home league. That top round pick is going to be one of the best things you can do. And then also, it does feel like, to me, the more and more drafts that I do, the more and more I'm going to prioritize that one early running back. And then you can fade into that rounds where we got Mostert, Javonte, Connor, all of those guys, like the Blake Corums. Those guys are fine, I think, as you have them as 2s, 3s, 4s. But having a guy like, I don't want to get caught in the middle. I feel like we got caught in the middle with Kenneth Walker. He's not an elite talent, but he's not like in that tier either. So it just felt like we almost wasted a pick. And that's the way that I'm coming away with that. So I'd prefer to prioritize that high-end running back prospect.
And I think in previous years, there's been like the blessing of like a Rachaad White in the 5th that has kind of emerged, that there's been these dead zone running backs. And when I'm looking at it this year, I mean, there always is a dead zone running back that emerges, but I think more and more, like even after doing this and a few other underdog drafts like earlier this week, I think definitely like the hero RB build, whether it's in an underdog draft, whether it is going to be in your, home league that you're going to be doing in a few months, like that's probably the way that I'm going, taking that elite level guy, whether it is round 1 or round 2. But even when you get to round 3, like the options really start to dwindle after like the top 6 guys. And typically like the top 8 guys are already off the board. So then you're getting stuck like we did with a Kenneth Walker as your RB1, and you're just praying that he turns into Heisman Trophy, Michigan State Kenneth Walker on the Seattle Seahawks. And who knows if that's actually going to happen.
Hopefully. We got one question in here. It's a Dynasty question. Josiah says, what do you guys prefer in Dynasty, Waddle plus a third or Ayuk?
I know I just bashed on Waddle, but I would take Waddle.
Are you there?
I mean, okay, if you can convince me that Brandon Ayuk is going to get traded to somewhere else because they took Ricky and that's going to happen, then sure. Or you're going to promise me that Deebo Samuel's off the team this year, cool. But like, I feel like what we just saw from Brandon Ayuk, like that's his ceiling unless something changes. And so I can't predict change there. And I think Waddle, as much as I don't love the production, I have them so close in my tiers. I literally just put out my Dynasty wide receiver rankings, and I have them so close that I would just take I would take the third on top, take the extra gravy.
Fair enough. To me, a third is not really a difference maker. Like I could almost care less about the third. I'm almost viewing this as just Waddle or Ayuk. And in my rankings, I just updated them today. We're actually going to talk about them on a bdge video that we go film tomorrow. I'm not sure when it's going to come out, but we're going to talk about top 24 Dynasty wide receivers. And I have Ayuk as my wide receiver 14. I have Waddle as my wide receiver 15. So they're back to back 14 and 15, but a third. It's going to come down to roster construction. I think if you have Purdy or if you have Tua, that's going to change my opinion. If you have another Dolphin on your lineup like Achane or Mostert, that's going to change my opinion. Like it's so close at this point that the third really is irrelevant. And I think it more comes down to roster construction for me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I just double checked. Yeah, I have Ayuk one spot higher. So
okay,
I think a third
we're the same.
We're so close.
Higher.
I think a third, like I know the third is worthless, but it also is something. So it's like if you got 2 guys in the same tier, you just kind of take that extra value.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, man. Well, that is going to be the video for today, guys. If you guys want to practice, you want to do some mock drafts like we did today over on Underdog Fantasy, there is a link in the top of the description to sign up for Underdog Fantasy. These are real drafts. The one we did today was $3. Winner gets like, I don't even know how much they get. I think it's like $25 or $30 or something like that. No. But cheap little mock drafts that you can do to prepare for your redraft leagues. They are real money leagues, so people actually take them seriously rather than doing like free sleeper mock drafts where people are going to pick random players and mess up your strategy. This is actually going to get you prepared for your redraft leagues. So if you want to sign up for that, use code League FFB, use the code in the description. They will match your deposit. They will also give you guys a free pick'em if you want to play on their pick'ems play, which is basically like somebody has a line at 24.5 receiving yards or something like that this year. You pick the higher or the lower. That's what you do. So if you want to do that, go sign up for that. Caleb, your channel is linked in the description as well. So go follow Caleb. Caleb, if they don't check the description, where can they find you at?
Yeah, you can find me at YouTube at Caleb Niemi. Definitely going to be putting a lot more redraft content as well. We've been grinding that Dynasty content, but we're heading into that redraft season. So once you guys all over there, make sure you're subscribed over here to the League FFB with Andrew. I can say this: Andrew grinds the content like no other, and so I'm in the space. Andrew's grinding in the space. We're both trying to grow our channels, grow our following. So we want you guys to support because we're building this up from the ground floor. And right now we're in the basement. We are where our team was that we just drafted, but we want you to be there so that when someday you look back, you're like, hey, like I appreciate those guys, what they've done to grind to the top. So we want to provide the best fantasy football content that we possibly can. And it's only with your support that we can do that. So I appreciate all y'all.
Absolutely, man. So if you're in here, you're on Twitter, you're on YouTube, whatever you are, go to YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all of that stuff for us. If you're on Twitter, hit the follow button over there on that app as well. We'll see you guys on the next one. Caleb, we'll probably do this on your channel at some point too.
Easily. Appreciate all y'all.
All right, we'll see you later. Peace out.